Alright, what's going on, guys? It is your boy TKD123 here, back again with a video, and we have a very big video here, very big deal here. And if you guys are not aware, I'm sure this has been already on Twitter a bunch of times. I'm sure you may have already seen it, but to break it down for you all, this is the first ever official details about the PlayStation 5. Now, this is no like rumors, these aren't, you know, anything that we are speculating. This is concrete information that was given exclusively to a website here called Wired.com, and they did an interview with Mark Cerny. If you remember Mark Cerny, he was the individual that led the PlayStation 4 hardware reveal and the overall just PlayStation introduction. No, not the hardware. He just did that whole conference back in February of 2013 where he talked about the PlayStation 4 and officially announced the PlayStation 4. However, the design of the console was not until E3 that year. But nonetheless, Mark Cerny was the person that talked about the architecture of the PS4, the system as a whole, the just in terms of like the software and everything about the PS4 that we were going to be getting in 2013. So he comes back again, not on a press conference format, but on a whole interview with Wired.com. And so I'm going to read through all the things he said about here, and really all the things he says here about the PS5 are concrete. Like, they are actually going to be a thing, and we got a ton of information, so let's just get started. First of here, he talks about the name, and the whole interview he kept bringing up that, hey, is this next gen console the PS5? Because Mark Cerny kept calling it the next gen hardware, next gen console, but beating around the bush as if it was called PS5. And so one of the people that were interviewing Mark Cerny, just asked, hey, is it the PS5? And he just smiled and said it's the next gen console. So that smile indicates that it's probably going to be called the PS5. That's no surprise here. And then he also makes a bold statement, well, not really that bold honestly to anyone else, but at least to me, he said that it is not in 2019. And it's been a big debate as we were going to see the PS5 in 2019 or 2020, even 2021, but I feel like the console is going to be out in 2020. I feel like that is what I've been said from the day one, and some people were thinking 2019, but I think at this point, now that are pretty much almost to E3, we've heard nothing of the PS5 other than this, I definitely think it's not 2019. And obviously here he confirms, says not 2019, so that's just what it is there. Next up, he talks about dev kits, right? And obviously we've seen some leaked dev kits. We have talked about it on Save Slot and all those other individual videos that I've made in the past revolving around the different potentialities of these dev kits being real. However, he does admit that multiple developers and game creators do have dev kits, and they are working on being more affluent with the hardware, and so they're working on kind of having the hardware in their warehouse and having them more optimized to the studio's needs to create these games. And so there are dev kits being made, well, not even being made, but they are out in the wild in studios at game creators' offices, and thus they are making games for PS5. So that is 100% confirmed by Mark Cerny himself. And then he says this whole thing about how, obviously with a new console, the major leaps are with the CPU and GPU. They become powerful, they are able to drive previously unattained graphical fidelity and visual effects, system memory increases in size and speed, and game files grow to match. Also, the need to support larger game downloads as well as with higher capacity physical media discs. Although, just all that stuff he laid out technically was a way to show that this is what next gen means. Like this is what they kind of see a next generation console and see what they do to bring it out to the market. Like this is what they focus on. And so he doubles back and says that they have done just that with all those different things that he listed. And so Mark Cerny lays out here that the next gen console will have a AMD chip at the heart of the device, thus marking that kind of CPU point of what they view as next gen. And so he says that the CPU is based on the third generation of AMD Ryzen's line and contains 8 cores of the company's new 7nm Zen 2 microarchitecture, the 7nm Zen 2 microarchitecture, to say that more correctly. The GPU, a custom variant of Radeon's Navi family, will support ray tracing, a technique that models the travel of light and simulates complex interactions in 3D environments. So if you guys haven't know what ray tracing is, right now it's popular with like Battlefield 5, I believe, has it, and some other games have ray tracing as well. But essentially what it is that when you look at a mirror in the game, on most games right now, it might just be like a static image, or it might show you and not that much else. Like, it doesn't really act like a mirror. However, when you look at reflections and mirrors in games that support ray tracing, you can see the different environments in the foreground and the background of that mirror, and you can see what it's reflecting a little bit more clearer and stuff like that. And so it's more of a true to life reflection and everything. So that's one of the benefits of ray tracing. And so they say that, you know, the PS5 will support ray tracing, which is nice to hear as well. And I really didn't think that it was going to support it, but it's really cool to see that they are supporting ray tracing at launch. And they also announced here that the AMD chip will also support 3D audio, and this goes hand in hand with the acquisition that was made back in January, where Sony bought Audio Kinetic, and more specifically, Audio Kinetic owns the toolkit of Wise. And so Wise implements interactive audio into a bunch of different software that it's in. And so we've seen that a bunch of times in games, but Sony has bought that specific company and has that technology in their warehouse. So that, I believe, will lend nicely to 3D audio. And they talk about how 3D audio just has better all just immersion with audio, and just overall just better sounding, more advanced, more immersing sound that they can bring with the PS5. And so it will also lend, I believe, a very, very good benefit to VR, you know. And they talk more about VR here in a little bit, but just to make sure it gets clear here that like 3D audio will be very important to VR. I think that is the main reason why they actually bought this company, and I'm pretty sure that, you know, is why it's in the PS5. I think that like VR is going to be a big focus. They've said it from the jump that they view VR as another platform, as another console. So I think that they're going to continue that, and they do have some VR quotes that Mark Cerny said. He says, quote, "I won't go into the details of our VR strategy today beyond saying that VR is very important to us and that the current PSVR headset is compatible with the new console." So if you have a current PSVR, you will be able to use that with the PS5. However, clearly here, he's being around the bush and not saying anything intentionally. I think they do have another PSVR unit in development, and we've seen that with different types of patents that have been out there. And obviously patents don't mean that that's what they're going to be doing, but it does mean that they're working on it, and they do, I'm sure, have a second generation PSVR units that will be out for the PS5, and that will work probably a little bit better than the current gen PSVR. So that is what he said there. And there's another big thing that they go into as well, and it has to do a lot with the size of games. Obviously games have gotten huge, right? We have Red Dead Redemption 2 clocking in at 90 gigs, over that, honestly. We have other games like the upcoming Days Gone that I'm going to just leak right here, even though I have a video dedicated to it, you know, later on. But that has a huge file size as well, up in the, I believe, 60s range. So definitely a high file size for Days Gone as well, upcoming. And I believe God of War was 45 gigs. So, you know, just games are getting bigger overall. And so they have a specific way that they are going to kind of achieve that and really tackle that problem of high games and stuff like that. And so they say that SSDs are confirmed, and they are very important to reducing load times and just overall just making games don't seem as big and don't seem as a hassle to load and start up. They say with the SSD though, in the PS5 or the next gen console, it will be specialized and tuned so that it is used in a way better form factor than what it would be out of the box from the current company. And so they used a really cool example here where they had a Spider-Man PS4 running on a PS4 Pro, and they initiated fast travel in the game on a PS4 running the, you know, just retail copy of Spider-Man PS4. And so it took the PS4 Pro 15 seconds to initiate a, you know, fast travel from A to B, right? It was 15 seconds in total. They did the same thing on the next gen hardware on the PS5 with the exact same game running, and they did the same fast travel technique, and it did it in 0.8 seconds. That is insane. And of course that has to do with the CPU and GPU as well, but it has mainly to do with the SSD in that console. And so that's very, very cool to see that they, you know, in theory have you know, certain things running at 19 times the rate on the new hardware. And so I think that is really cool as well. And so also SSD will allow for faster render times, and this was demonstrated by just seeing raw gameplay of Spider-Man PS4 on a PS4 Pro or base PS4. You see the speed at which Spider-Man is moving, Peter Parker, right? He's moving at a pretty, you know, fast pace, but the reason why he's moving at that pace is not really because that's how they developed it or how they intended on the speed of that to be. It was mainly because that is the limitations of the hardware working at play. And so they could, in theory, have Spider-Man be faster and move more faster and more fluid throughout the world. However, the game could not render at that speed at the current hardware they were at. However, with the PS5, they showed an example of the same thing of Spider-Man swinging through the city, and he was moving at an alarming rate, way faster than what he was moving on PS4 Pro, and that's because they are able to do that because the game can render faster with the SSD, and the hardware can keep up with the game itself. And so that is a way that they showed that and everything. And they even went as further step ahead as pausing the game when it was running on the next gen hardware and showing that, hey, this is rendering in 4K, this is rendering in a very high resolution. It's not like it's going to downgrade and do all that because it's running a little bit faster than the current hardware on the PS4 Pro. It is actually just faster because it can handle that. So that was really cool to see that there. They also, talking about graphics here as well, they also said that the next gen will support 8K graphics, which I think is a little bit of a loaded thing to say, just because obviously 8K displays, 8K TVs are not at all prevalent right now in the market, and mainly the 4K is now becoming the new standard, if not, I believe, the already standard for TVs and monitors and all that good stuff. And so them saying it can support 8K, that's cool. That's kind of like when Stadia said they support 8K, like that's great to hear. But you guys, we're not there yet, is what I'm saying. So it can support 8K. I just think that was just a loaded question just to kind of have cool headlines. But obviously they were demonstrating the next-gen stuff in the interview on a 4K display. Mark Cerny was playing with the next-gen hardware on a 4K display. So that's what they showed at the interview. And so some quick things they also said here about the next-gen hardware, or the PS5, if you want to call it that. It will support physical media, and due to it being based on the PS4's architecture, so they built upon the architecture laid out by the PS4 instead of having a completely different cell processor architecture with the PS3 from the PS2 from that transition. They have the PS4 architecture they built the PS5 upon, and now that means that we can have backwards compatibility for PS4 games, which I think is a great thing. Having backwards compatibility was something that I would have hoped for, and I would have assumed that was going to happen. Everyone did, because really, I do not see a future where the PS5 would not have been backwards compat with the PS4. I think that would have been totally insane, but they did confirm here that the PS5 will be backwards compatibility with the PS4, which is great to hear. And I believe that even stretches not only beyond the physical media, but also digital media as well. So I think that both those fronts will be covered. And also said that they will have a season where numerous games will be released across PS4 and PS5 games simultaneously. They will release at the same time. And so I thought this was really cool, because this is actually something I brought up at a cross circle yesterday during the podcast. I brought up the prospect of, hey, it's never been done before, at least as far as I'm aware, but what if Sony first party is starting to release PS4 and PS5 games at the same time simultaneously? And so one of the spokespersons at the interview brought up Death Stranding, like, hey, is Death Stranding, it would be released on PS4. However, Mark Cerny smiled and I did a little pause, and that kind of invites speculation that it could be released on both PS4 and PS5 platforms. Maybe at the same time, that could possibly be a thing here, because he says that, hey, numerous games will be released simultaneously across PS4 and PS5. And so a spokesperson brought up this trending as an example, and he didn't really say no, but he didn't really say yes, but it just led a lot of people to speculate that maybe it could happen. We don't know, guys. And he ends off with a few things here. He just ends off with, of course, saying that they are not ready to talk about services. They're not ready to talk about other features, other games, prices, with the PS5, and that's obviously, set in stone, because obviously they are not ready to talk about that yet. And I'm sure they will talk about that at some point this year, maybe at the end of the year, maybe at PSX, who knows, but they just weren't ready to talk about services, features, games, or pricing of the PS5 or the next-gen console. And then he ends off with a really good quote I want to read out to you guys. So we have, of course, Google Stadia, their streaming initiative. We have Xbox and their xCloud streaming initiative, where they are trying to do streaming. We have rumors of Amazon getting into it. We have rumors of Walmart getting into it as well. Just a lot of streaming going on in the gaming industry right now, and how that is kind of looking like the future of what we're looking with in terms of technology. And so Sony, more specifically, Mark Cerny, at this interview said, quote, "We are cloud gaming pioneers, and our vision should become clear as we head toward launch." And so it looks like they're doubling down. They're like, hey, listen, we are the pioneers of cloud gaming. Like we are the cloud gaming people that started it all, from what they say. And this is a very bold statement. They said that they have a vision, and it should be clear by launch. And so it looks like they are going to probably talk a little bit more about how they're going to really nail down that whole sentiment. But that was pretty much all we got here from this interview, guys. I will link, of course, the interview down in the description, but let me know what you all think down below. Are you guys happy to see what we discussed here? Do you like how the PS5 is sounding, or the next gen hardware or PlayStation? Do you like how it's sounding? Is there anything that you don't like? Are you impressed? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Make sure also while you are down there to check out our links below in the description, where you can find our Twitch, our Discord, our Twitter as well. Make sure to go check out all those links down below in the description. Thank you for watching, and as always, greatness awaits.